A great Tuesday evening, everyone. I know it's very late. I actually should be going to bed about now, but wanted to actually come on and say hi to everyone. Haven't seen you guys in a couple of weeks. Long story short, wasn't feeling well a little earlier this week. Caught AEW Dynamite and Rampage tapings last Wednesday here in Cleveland. Had a great time. Was out with my best friend. Late kind of birthday party for my brother. Happy birthday, Frank, if you're watching this or belated. And a bunch of guys we from our group we hadn't seen in a long time, some several months, couple even over a year. But we're back, and we've got a couple of announcements coming up towards the end here. But college football is completely back, and that's actually going to lead into one of the announcements we're going to talk about at the end here. We had a handful of games back on Saturday. A lot of them were smaller schools. Some of your Big West, I'm sorry, your WAC, your Mountain West, some of your smaller like SWAC schools. But we did get a Big Ten matchup on Saturday, and it was certainly, I mean, it was advertised as you know a good game, but and actually turned out to be a lot better than anyone should have given it credit for, but not for the right reasons. And that was actually between Nebraska and Northwestern. Now you'd figure, okay, sometimes with the Big Ten scheduling, you'll get an early season game. Maybe you'll get a neutral site or something like that, and that's what this was. They ended up playing over in Dublin, Ireland, where I haven't read the entire story, but apparently they were giving away free beer at one point at the stadium. Now I'm not a Guinness fan, um, so I wouldn't have been missing much. But this is the Nebraska was in control of this game. At one point, Nebraska led 28-17. They had leads of 14-3, and were up 28-17 just a few minutes into the third quarter. As a matter of fact, they scored two touchdowns within a matter of 2 minutes. They had an 8-play, 88-yard drive to go up 21-17, take the lead away from Northwestern, and that 17-14 was the lead at the half. And then after a quick turnover, ended up getting having a two-play 46-yard touchdown drive with an Anthony Grant 46-yard run. It was actually his second. It was his second touchdown run within, again, 2 minutes here, putting Nebraska up 28-17. And then Nebraska head coach Scott Frost decided to get cute. He calls an onside kick. Northwestern recovers at the Nebraska 44, and then proceeds to take only 5 plays to go those 44 yards in a minute 16. Northwestern cuts into that lead to 28-24, and then with 11:34 in the fourth quarter, goes up 31-28 and never looks back. Nebraska in the second half accounted for 4 punts and 2 interceptions, 3 turnovers on the day, allowed Northwestern to rack up 528 yards, and Northwestern wins that opener 31-28. That's not the underlying story. The Frost onside kick debacle is what's getting the most run. The even more underlying fact is it is Nebraska's eighth straight loss. And we're not talking conference loss. We're talking eighth straight overall, even though, yes, they are conference losses. Nebraska hasn't been to a bowl game since Mike Riley was still there. They haven't finished in the top 25 since 2013. They haven't been to a BCS game since the 2001 Rose Bowl. And this is an absolute atrocity as to what Scott Frost has actually done to this program. Tom Osborne and even to an extent, Frank Solich are not coming back, although Husker Nation is wishing that they were. They'll even take Mike Riley at this point. With the way that Frost was on top of the college football world after taking UCF to that undefeated season a few years back, and then Nebraska going out and losing their first six under him, that's not the way that you start to build a legacy. And it's just started piling up on top of Frost, and he's got no way of surviving this season. I'll say it right now. That's not burying the lead. That's just truth, because Frost is 15-30 in 6 years. The Huskers were picked by the 14 Big Ten coaches to finish fifth in the West Division, and then you go out and you lose to the team that was ranked dead last in that same division in the opening week. And now stories coming out today that there is not conflict with him and new offensive coordinator Eric Whipple. Nebraska only has one talent right now that's projected to be any sort of high draft pick in next April's draft, and that's linebacker Garrett Wilson. Wilson got 7 votes for. I'm sorry, he was tied for 7th in voting for the preseason Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year. The problem is that if Nebraska is going to go out and do this with Frost putting them in disadvantageous situations, it's going to put Whipple way behind the 8 ball already, and he's going to end up burning out the defense, which means you're not going to get anything out of Wilson. Wilson's going to get exposed. His draft stock is going to plummet. Wilson right now, as it stands right now, is nothing worse than a second-day pick, which would actually be a second or a third-round pick. But he's got all the talent in the world from what we've seen is for his last year and a half. Worth of content that he could sneak his way into the first round. He's that good. But Frost completely forgot where his bread was buttered. I understand taking your dream job. I understand wanting to go home. We saw it with Urban Meyer winning 2 national championships at Florida and then wanting to go back home to Ohio and coach the Buckeyes and got a national championship there, had another undefeated season. I've bashed, Herb for making that money grab, but Herb is, regardless of if you take what he did with the Jacksonville Jaguars in the NFL and that complete mess out of the equation, Urban Meyer has got 3 national championships. He doesn't have the win total like a Joe Paterno or a Bobby Bowden, had. Nobody's going to get to that number. Saban's, he's not going to match. He could come back right now, and there's no way anyone's going to sniff, Bear Bryant and Saban's national championship totals. But Urban Meyer is a college football. He's a collegiate Hall of Famer for the job that he's done throughout his career, even going back to Utah and to an extent Bowling Green. But for Frost to go back to Nebraska, basically taking the job at his alma mater, where he won 2 national titles under Tom Osborne. He was a third-round pick of the Jets in 1998, played parts of 5 seasons before retiring with injury. As a matter of fact, his last season in the NFL, he played 4 games with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and was injured. And while he was injured, was given an exemption by the NFL to go back to Nebraska and be the special. He was a graduate assistant on the coaching staff. But for Frost to do what he did at UCF and then make the jump, any one of us would be doing backflips to be able to do that, especially if it was our alma mater. But sometimes that doesn't necessarily work out. So Urban Meyer is one of the exceptions. The other one that I can think of in recent memory is what Chris Peterson did with Boise State. Remember, he got little Boise State into two BCS games, won them both. That was the 2006 and 2009 Fiesta Bowls, and that 2006 Fiesta Bowl against Oklahoma will still go down as one of the greatest upsets in the history of college football. And quite honestly, it was one of the most entertaining games any of us have ever seen. And then he goes to Washington, and yeah, he gets them to bowl games in all 6 of his years. Doesn't win a conference championship, doesn't get Washington to a BCS. Does actually finish in the top 5 one of those years, when the smoke clears. But had it made it Boise State, and Boise State's actually still been competitive, but they've not been a quote unquote powerhouse, the team that nobody wanted to play, where Peterson makes the jump to Washington, and they're just right in the middle of the pack with Oregon and USC, being the dominant teams out in that conference for all those years. But to say that Frost Seat is hot right now after 6 incredibly underwhelming seasons, or coming up on 6, and that level, and I'm sorry, not even that. It's where's my math again? It's by the time this is actually getting taped, it's 11:15. My brain is in the process of shutting completely down. But for as abysmal as his record's been, and to actually lose his last 8, and then to actually go across the pond and try and showcase your sport to fans who otherwise wouldn't be able to get, who wouldn't otherwise pay attention to your sport because their football is soccer, and it's religion over there for them, whereas college football is religion for a vast majority of the country that does not live in an NFL market, here in the United States. And then to go out and basically crap the bed the the last quarter and a half, to allow that game to happen, that cannot happen. And Frost Seed is not only just hot, it's nuclear. There is no way he survives this season. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if Nebraska by the middle of the season, if Nebraska is, let's say, 2-4, 1-5, if they don't have at least 3 wins by the time November comes around, I could actually see a scenario where Nebraska's athletic director decides to make a change and they fire Frost. And then they go an interim route, and then they actually, because Nebraska is no sooner to being rebuilding their program to kind of get back to relevancy at this point, with or without Frost. They're not going anywhere, and Frost has actually shown that he's in over his head. He was a little too big for his britches by taking that job. But again, nothing wrong with him wanting to come home to his alma mater, but had to have known what he was getting himself into, and this is certainly not how any of this would be playing out. But let me know what you guys think down in the comment box below. Like and subscribe if you're interested. How long does Frost last? Does he make the end of the year? Does Nebraska have a schedule that lines up that allows them to rebound from this? Or is he basically just dead man walking, and let's see where he ends up in 2023. There will be a special live We don't really want to call it the Wise Guys Sports Show, but it is going to be a live preview on YouTube and Twitch on Friday night. I want to say we're going to go either 8 or 8:30, at the worst case 9 o'clock. It's not going to be a full show like a typical Wise Guy show, but it is going to be a preview of the Ohio State Notre Dame game with myself and Mike. Mike will be taking the side of overrated state, and sorry, I had to get one in. And I will be taking the side of Notre Dame. We are not going to go in there bashing each other. This is not going to be, you know, banter, but this is going to be an actual preview of the biggest season opener for Ohio State, and quite honestly, the biggest opener for Notre Dame in recent memory. And it could be, as Mike has said, on our show, and then also if you go over to his channel and watch the video that he put up earlier this week, this actually could be the last time we get a heavyweight matchup like this in the Big Ten, with the way that teams are moving around, unless we see a scenario where Notre Dame says the hell with it and finally ends up joining the Big Ten. And you've seen our comments on that before on previous episodes. There also is going to be a Wise Guy show probably next weekend. We're still dotting I's and crossing T's by the time the the game preview is on Friday night. Mike and I should have some sort of time nailed down for that. But again, we will see you guys live on Friday night. Everyone take care. Everyone stay safe. Enjoy the rest of your night. And thanks for watching. Good night.